lot of practical experience to support or guide business leaders to be the inspiring leaders in the industry. So the questions we're trying to ask in here is, what is the role that the business leaders play now and in the future? So when we're talking about the role they're supposed to play, actually, it's not just a request. It's more like what we can do to support them to play the role they're supposed to play.
First of all, ni hao. Ni hao to everybody. Thank you for having me here. The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that now I understand, after hearing the previous presentations, how our brains are based on experience, and experience where we get most of our current behaviors from. Unfortunately, the experience from the past is useless for the future. In fact, the future is totally uncertain, so that we cannot be prepared. I love when people say, oh, you should prepare for the future. Impossible. You don't know what the future is. How can you prepare for something you don't know about? So I think there's a huge amount of focus on that, which has not been tapped into right now, on the present. Not the past, not the future, but the present. And an image that I was reading about yesterday comes to mind, the Wright brothers, and how the Wright brothers actually created planes. And what they did, they didn't go and plan and think and draw, and they just sat on the beach for days on end, just watching birds and just observing how birds flew. Actually, they understood more of the reality around them. And then they were in a better position to make things happen in the future. And in that time of stopping, of not doing anything, they were said, oh, these are idiots or fools or crazy. They didn't care. They just enjoyed being in the moment, observing carefully what was around them, and through that observation, then being in the best place to actually make things happen, build the future. So I'm a big advocate for forget the past, don't even get into the future, just be present, observe, and learn to be.
In this recent years, almost 2 and 3 years, we've been doing something. Leadership is not a new topic. So in China, lots of companies, and either external consulting or training companies, and they've been offering leaders all kinds of training all the time. But why? Leaders' behavior still not change. Or why? The leadership effectiveness still remain in some of the companies still same. So we have to really think about the core atmosphere or core questions. We try to touch base or dig deeper of the real problem of leadership behavior. So as a leader, as a business leader, and you have to touch base of the essential needs of your team's brain. You have to meet those brain first. And then you talk about a performance and collaboration and something else. So in these years, we've been offering different kind of consulting, training programs to our clients, just to try to, I'm not going to say correct, just to bring more awareness of those leaders that if you want to make all those methodology, all those approaches right, if you want to use them right, then you have to aware that underneath, there's a mechanism of the brain. So meet those brains needs first, and then you talk about, or you use all those methodologies and approaches. Good news is in China, more and more companies, they accepted and they welcome this kind of ideas.
What I observe in the corporate world is people struggle, but they tend not to change. So burned out by the corporate decision makers and how they make the decision. They know they need to have the purpose and the meaning, but when they first start getting into the business world, it's all the survival-based needs. So this actually leads to my next questions. We all know the only thing we can help the leaders to change their approach to do the business, the impact they can make in the society, is to help them to level up their conscious level and to help them to increase their worldview or expand their worldview. So I would love to know from your guys' practical experience, because you're all working with a business, big or small, what is the tested solutions or method or or whatever tools you used that you can see it works with the business leaders and can really facilitate and help them to expand their worldview?
So there's two areas where I work in, which is the B Corp movements on one side and EBBF on the other.
Yeah.
And there's two fundamental elements. The first one is there's too much individualism and too much I. Instead of moving that, who I am with it, my role. So it's not just from me to we, it's from me to what is my role. And that is so liberating, because the more we focus on I am this, I am that, what do people think of me or what I do, it's really heavy. But instead, it's so liberating. Oh, my role in life is, and therefore you go back to yourself and try to develop your capacity to go forward. You develop the capacity of your team to go forward. So shifting to what is my role? What is my company's role? Why should my company exist? That's what really allows a thriving to happen. And the second element that I'm seeing when I join B Corp summits or meetings or EBBF meetings, you need to create the conditions for progress to happen in a much faster way. So people come to BF events and say, oh, I feel so great here. Oh, there's so much energy here. Why? Very simple. It's serene place. It's non-competitive. It's stretching the imagination. Is a huge diversity of views. People think very different things. There's a deep spiritual or purpose-driven kind of area that really makes sense. And you're not alone. You find there's other people with whom you can move forward. And then in the B Corp movement, again, there's a lot of thinking of reflecting how to use business as a force for good. That's a big statement to make. Use business as a force for good. And there's two elements there: the reflection of how can my business, how can my team, how can I make this happen, and action. So if you just reflect all the time, you go into this mind spinning thing of thinking is frustrating. If you just act, which is what most people do without reflecting, your actions will be plainly idiotic. It's like, it's crazy. So you need that balance of reflecting on the role and then the actions that go forward. And the last option is, instead of ending an event with a to-do list, with a commitment, is why don't we live with the joy of experimenting? We have no idea what the future is like. So let's joy and enjoy in our minds. I'm going to leave this room to experiment, which is life-threatening to any corporate thing. What? Experiments? We cannot experiment. We need to know what comes next. You do not know what comes next. So liberate your mind, your brain, yourself to experiment, fulfilling your role.
Cool. So this is the 3 points you just mentioned. From the me to the role, either rather than to the way, because this is really make a difference. It's what I can do. So it's in my own power. I can create that, and I can use this role to find utilize my strengths, my purpose, my mission here. So this is my role. Perfect. And the reflect and act, and also create the environment conditions. We need to make the employee constantly engaged in this spiritual rich environment to allow them to apply their high order purpose. My next question is, I guess lots of leaders, when I say it's a competency issue, it's because in their surroundings, they haven't get exposure to the information, different type of way of thinking to allow them to look at things differently. So what kind of questions you think you would suggest the leaders to ask themselves to help them to moving forward?
For this kind of situation, we just help them and lead them to see the future, the why they start the company, and how they want a company to be, and what's the future like. So if you want them to change even a little bit, you want them to see what's the benefit of change, even like a little bit.
Yeah.
And they know the benefit, those little bit of benefit will eventually benefit the whole company, and they will take a try. And sometimes we'll do the brutally honest thing, which means if you do not change, what will happen? And they will decide and judge if they want to change. And you can't just force them to do something. Yeah. They will make the final decision. So for like a corporate leadership change, I think culture is one of the main issues in addition to ego. So if you want address the leadership transformation, you have to address like in both ways.
What are questions leaders can ask themselves to help them to progress?
You have to address what stops you in the past from making the right or healthy decision. And then you have to know the word fear. So like in each individual, the fear inside yourself is different. So you have to know what is it. The reason why you have to know is once you know it and you can face it, and in the future, and you know what you can do to, just avoid it or adapt to it. And that's one dimension. The other dimension is you're a business leader. You're either in a corporate or you have your own company. So you have to ask the question around where you want the team or the company go. When I ask where you want it to go, I'm not referring to the revenue or how big you want a company to be. I'm more asking about the long-term perspective. As long as a leader, as long as you can look at the long perspective, the long term, and then from the long term to now, your decision and your judgment and lots of things will be different. So I think if you're a leader, if you're an entrepreneur, you should ask a question either about yourself and also about how you want a company to be.
I do know in the environment, like in China, everything goes so fast.
Exactly.
And leaders really have no space and the time to pause because they have this fear if they pause, they're going to be left out. And I also can see that. Yeah, I also can see that in Australia, the young entrepreneurs, they just trying to run as fast as they possible. But sometimes actually that have the counter effect on the results.
And I hear fear coming up a lot of times. So about the question you should ask. So fear is not very good when you need to work and operate, because if you work in fear, you will not be your best self. Everything, nobody will trust you. It's not a good place to be. So how can we shift from fear to something else? Is the key word is control. So take control of what you can take control of. And there's only 3 things you can control in life. It's very important. It's what I do, what I say, and my attitude. You cannot control what people think. You cannot control what others happen. So these 3 things are what you need to take control of. And the mindset depends, is exactly what Tina was saying. Are you thinking about today or yesterday, or are you thinking about the future? And you can see on the top there, EBBF is ethical business building the future. Look at Facebook. Did they adapt? No, they build the future. Look at Zoom. Did they adapt? No, they build the future. Look at electric cars and Tesla. Adapt? No, they build. And why they built the future is because everybody that was working there was so excited and fearless about, hey, we're building the future. So it's a mindset that creates in the brain all the right and dopamines, I think it's called, that, oh, wow, and create, oh, this is really exciting, as opposed to managing the present. There was a session in a bank that some friends of ours did from ABBF, and we're trying to fix a bank. And they were all so stressed and it didn't work. And then in one moment, somebody said, you know what? I think banking is dead. Moment of silence, panic. You know what happened next? Everybody relaxed. Oh, it's dead. Oh, let's build something that's new, that's the future. So admitting that this is not working and stopping there, that's a great question. So is what I'm doing dead? What does the future look like? And how can I take control of what I do, what I say, and my mindset? It's very, very difficult, but it's a motorway to progress.
But I wonder, is there something in your mind that you would love to share with the audience? So as a closure of this conference.
There's something I wanna add at the end. It's because in this session we talk about the leaders. So in this, we call it's in era of internet or it's AI. Lots of leaders in either corporate or startup companies, they tend to focus more on the technology instead of people. I think the ultimate solution is back to people. I mean, technology or some methodology or approach, or it's either neuroscience or some kind of science, it's serving the purpose of having this employee engage at work. So if your focus is back to people, back on the individual, and you will find that no matter what approach you select, and
So
you achieve that what you're looking for.
okay.
So my final comment would be that it's all very nice what we're saying, but most people will now have to return to their workplaces, to the offices after this Sunday. Say, "Ooh, how do I apply this in my area?" And I think we all, except for myself, we're in walls. You can see the walls that we're living in. So within each organization, there's walls. Those walls are not totally fixed, but even if they were fixed within those boundaries, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot you can enjoy doing. And it's quite surprising. And I found that time and again, how one's example has a very strong effect. So strengthening this sense of I am the leader, again, in control of what I say, what I do, and my attitudes, that gives the kind of energy that makes it very attractive in front of other people. And the last thing within those four walls, understanding what can you do, expanding them, finding your role, find people with whom to enjoy the journey. Never do things on your own. Always try to find the like-minded. There'll always be one or two more like-minded people. And how do you find them? Through meaningful conversations. Do not just talk about, in men's case, the football match or the party that you vote for. Go a bit deeper, have those deeper conversations. And that's where the female traits, the feminine ability to dialogue at a deeper level. Richard has it very developed, so it doesn't have to be a woman to do that. These feminine traits are really excellent now more than ever to create the environment of caring, of understanding that will bring success forward. But it all starts from yourself. Enjoy being yourself and live fully your role within the four boundaries of your organization with others.